So this next unit is Introduction to Assessment, and in it I'm going to talk to you about the different types of assessment that exist and some examples of those forms of assessment, and you'll have an opportunity to discuss this with your peers within the online session. So the learning outcomes are to identify the role of assessment in teaching and learning, to describe the different types of assessment, and to evaluate appropriate assessment methods for teaching and learning. So there are different forms of assessment. The first form of assessment is formative. And what we mean by that is that this happens and it's carried out during the instructional process, and it's for the purpose of improving teaching and learning. So what we mean by that is that it happens before the final assessment. It's something that is an opportunity to understand whether what's being taught is being understood. It's an opportunity to push learners to think about what the purpose is of what it is that they're engaging with, so that they understand themselves what the goalposts are, what it is that they are hoping to be moving towards, and they can just be a little bit more aware of what it is that they're learning. It can be for the teachers and pupils. It can serve both, about presenting an understanding and skill development. So it can be for the teachers to understand, well, what is it that I need to improve here? What is it that I need to do in order to ensure that the people that I'm teaching are understanding what I'm intending here? And for the pupils to understand better and draw their attention to what they are expected to be learning, and to perhaps ask questions with regards to that. So it really does push learning forward. It can be used immediately to make adjustments. So it's a good opportunity to continue to improve practice. Summative assessment, on the other hand, measures the level of success or proficiency that has been obtained at the end of an instructional unit by comparing it against some standard or benchmark. So what we're talking about here is something getting assessed, something getting assessed by the marking matrix in university, for example, what that looks like in terms of what grade somebody's going to receive. It can be for the teachers and pupils, in that the pupils can then understand exactly what it is that they will receive, and then in future attempts they can have a go and do a better job. It can be for teachers to understand how well that unit's done overall, and to understand perhaps some of the reasons and rationales for that, and to increase understanding and skill development. It tends to be used when teaching is completed, so say it's at the end of an instructional unit. So if we were to summarise then, we've got formative and summative assessment. Formative assessment can be seen as an assessment for learning. It enables learning. It enables that continuation of kind of being conscious about what's needed in order to progress. And summative assessment, on the other hand, can be seen as an assessment of learning. There are a number of different assessment methods, some of which are summative and some of which are formative, and often they can be used for each one of them. Okay, so we've got observations. When we talk about observations, we might be talking about somebody who's marking, assessing a particular thing. So they might be assessing a presentation, they might be assessing how somebody conducts themselves in a meeting, how they use equipment, how they conduct an experiment. These are all observations, and they can be done summatively. They can be done summatively or formatively. Professional discussion, so that could be a discussion that's had between a marker and the person who is being marked. So a viva is a really good example of that. Professional discussions can be used in practice, so for example in social work practice, where it's necessary for interagency work between different people and different professionals, and how does that look? exams, so questions. How are questions used to assess people? What sorts of questions are we talking about here? Are we talking about open questions? Are we talking about closed questions? Are we talking about questions that require people to remember information? Are we talking about questions that require people to engage in deep thinking and apply their understanding of something to solve a problem? So exams can operate at all those different levels. Simulations, so that could be a gaming simulation, or it could be equipment, it could be piloting an aircraft. All of these different things can be ways of understanding whether somebody knows how to operate something, operate a piece of equipment, or operate a particular device. So that can be done. It's often in sort of engineering and spaces like this, then these can be quite popular as assessment methods. Written reports and essays. So reports might have a particular structure to them, and I expect there'll be different parts to that, the different elements to that, each of which can be assessed differently. And essays will perhaps follow an open question, and then that question is then answered and addressed. Portfolios of evidence. This is where somebody might collect information together and present that, perhaps with theory built into it, where there are different links and different references that can support what it is that's being said and what it is that is being argued. And finally, learning journals. Learning journals can be a really useful way of understanding somebody's reflective practice. So how is it that they are improving their ability to operate as a teacher, their ability to operate as a social worker, as a clinician? What is it that is required of them, and what are they getting involved in, and what's the outcome of that, and what are their thoughts with regards to how to continue to improve? So you get things like the Gibbs reflective cycle that can be used here in thinking about the process through which good practice is enabled. So these are some different methods. What I would like you to do is just have a think about and perhaps make some notes on the advantages and disadvantages of the different forms of assessment. And there'll be an opportunity for you to bring this back into quite a brief discussion as part of one of the activities in the online session.